11.1 Gas exchange in humans. Take a look at the objectives and don't forget to revisit them after you're done studying. Okay, so what's a gas exchange surface in humans? A gas exchange surface must be a part of the body, of course, because this is happening inside your body. You need the gas exchange for the sake of all of your vital activities. So it's a part inside the body where gas exchange between this body and the environment will take place. Again, so what's a gas exchange surface? It is a surface that's inside the body where the gas exchange will happen or take place. So does this gas exchange surface has characteristics or important characteristics? Yes, of course. There are a lot of characteristics that must be in this gas exchange surface in order to be successful. Let's take a look at these characteristics. The first one, it must have a good supply of oxygen. Of course, we need to do gas exchange as humans because we need oxygen to survive. Why? For our aerobic respiration that happens inside of our mitochondria. So, this gas exchange surface must be near to the oxygen or has a good supply for or of oxygen. Also, it has to be a large surface area. Of course, because if it's a small surface area, the amount of oxygen that will be able to diffuse or pass will be small. We don't need a small amount of oxygen. We need oxygen, a lot of oxygen, because every cell in our body will do aerobic respiration. So we need a large amount of oxygen to diffuse at the same time, and also another amount of carbon dioxide to leave. So the surface area must be a big one to allow this diffusion easily. Also, it has to be thin to allow the diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide, any gases, easily. If it's thick, the diffusion will face a hardship because it will not be able to pass easily. Also, it has to be close to an efficient transport system. It has to be close to the capillaries. Can you see here? The red blood cells keep picking oxygen. How do they do this? Because the walls are very thin. So the oxygen is able to diffuse and attach to the red blood cells. So let's take a look at the whole breathing system. Now we knew the characteristics of the gas exchanging surface, so we have to look at the whole system that will finally end with this surface. So, the breathing system. It starts with the nose and the mouth. So the air enters our body from the nose or the mouth, and both of them. And then the hair in the nose will trap the dust particles in the air. That's why you're always advised to breathe through your nose, not through your mouth, because your nose is adapted more to take in the air and to filter it. Also, the nasopharynx, this area, is lined by two very important barriers that protect our breathing system from getting infections, which are the mucus and the cilia. Who produces the mucus or who secretes the mucus? The goblet cells. So the goblet cells secrete mucus that is responsible for trapping any dust or foreign bodies and preventing those foreign bodies or dust from entering our breathing system. And then the cilia will push this mucus that has all of those unwanted stuff trapped in it and will push it outside, outwards, through the mouth or through the nose. And these are very important barriers that will protect us from infection. Now we have the pharynx, and we studied it before. It is a common pathway between the respiratory and the digestive systems, which means that both air and food pass through it. That's why, if you remember, we had the epiglottis here that closes the larynx. What's the larynx? The larynx is the voice box. it has the vocal cords. Can you see here? The movement of the vocal cords, as you can see them here. This is how you make your sound. And it has to be closed every time you swallow in order to prevent food that passes through the pharynx as well as the air from entering this part, from entering your breathing system. So here, this small part is the epiglottis. Let's continue looking at the organs of the breathing system. We have the ribs. Can you see? This is a cross section in the ribs. And your external and internal intercostal muscles. So the internal intercostal muscles are found between the ribs, and also the external intercostal muscles are found in the same place, but one of them are on the anterior part and one of them are on the exterior part. One of them inside and one of them is outside. They work antagonistically. Antagonistically in muscles means that when one of them contracts, the other relaxes. So they work as an opposite to each other. Why? To help our rib cage to expand and contract, to allow and help the breathing process. So here you have the ribs. The ribs are bones that protect the heart and the lungs from any physical damage. They are hugging the lungs and the heart and preventing anything to come directly to them. If you got hit, if you fell down, if anything happens to you, they prevent the damage or the physical damage from happening to the heart and the lungs, because the heart and the lungs, they are both soft tissues. So they need to be protected by a hard tissue, which are the ribs. Okay, let's take another look at the breathing system. Here you see, this is the trachea or the windpipe. It's a tube that is made of rings of cartilage. Why? To keep it open, we have to support it. So those rings of cartilage, they keep it open to allow the air to pass through it. And then the trachea branches into the bronchi, the plural bronchi, the singular bronchus. So they take the air from the trachea into the lungs. We have two lungs, one on each side. And then those bronchi branch more into smaller bronchioles. Bronchioles end up into air sacs or alveoli that we will study after a very little while. Look at this muscle down here. This is the diaphragm. The diaphragm is the muscle that creates the air pressure that will help the air get pushed into our breathing system. It is a very important muscle, and without it, breathing will not happen. Actually, it's from where the breathing starts. Without it, no air will be pushed inside our breathing system. Okay, so the thorax area, the whole thorax area or the chest, is the part of our body that's from the neck down till the diaphragm. Here you see, this is another diagram or a way to draw the diaphragm. Okay, alveoli. So these are the tiny air sacs, and actually these are the gas exchange surfaces. Remember the gas exchange surface that we took its characteristics at the beginning of the lesson? So the alveoli here, or the air sacs, these are gas exchange surfaces or the gas exchange place. Okay, so what happens here? What happens here is that oxygen diffuses into our circulatory system or through our capillaries and binds to our hemoglobin that's in our red blood cells. Remember, when hemoglobin gets combined with oxygen, it's called oxyhemoglobin. And where the carbon dioxide also diffuses out into the alveoli and then out into the atmosphere, which is a type of excretion. So the alveoli are where all these processes happen. So Let's look at the characteristics of the walls of the alveoli and recall the characteristics of the gas exchanging surfaces. First, large surface area, which is over 100 meters square. If you combine all the surface areas of the surfaces of all of those alveoli, you will find them equivalent to more or less 100 meters square. Excellent transport system where thousands of capillaries where gas exchange takes place. As you see here, beside each wall of a capillary, you will see an alveoli. So can you see here? They are attached to a huge network of capillaries. Can you see? So that gas exchange can happen easily, and the oxygen gets transported easily. Also, the carbon dioxide gets excreted easily. Very thin wall. So, as you see here, it's made only of one cell. The wall is made of one cell thick. What does this mean? The whole wall is made of one cell? No, it means that it's only one cell layer. So here, this is one cell, another cell, another cell, another cell, but no layering. They are not above each other, just one layer of one cell all around. Good ventilation to allow the movement of air, of course, because air gets pushed inside and ends up into this air sac, so it has a great ventilation. Now, if you apply all those characteristics to the characteristics of the gas exchanging surface, you will find them exactly the same. So let's take a look at the percentage of the components inside the air that's inhaled or exhaled, inspired or expired. So first, when we take air inside, we call it inhalation or inspiration. When we push air outside, we call it exhaling or expiring. Now, oxygen inside the inhaled air, you will find it 21%, while the expired air or the exhaled air has only 16% of oxygen, which means that our body took the rest of the oxygen. This difference went inside of our cells or got carried by our red blood cells. Carbon dioxide in the inhaled air is 0.04, but about the exhaled air, 4%, which is a huge difference. Water vapor, why is it variable in the inhaled air? Because it depends on the humidity. Humidity is the percentage of water vapor in the air. So that's why the percentage is variable according to the humidity at this day. While in the expired air or the exhaled air, it is very high because, yes, aerobic respiration produces water, which gets exhaled as water vapor. Now, air contains other gases like nitrogen, but their percentages do not change in the inhaled and exhaled air because they go in with air and go out without being used by our body. How can we test for the presence of carbon dioxide in a specific sample of air? We can test for the presence of carbon dioxide by two methods or two indicators, lime water, and the other one is hydrogen carbonate or bicarbonate indicator. Lime water is very easy and it's the most common one. When you blow air that contains a lot of carbon dioxide into lime water, it's going to change from transparent to milky or turbid. This is a proof that this air that you just blew into the lime water contains a lot of carbon dioxide. Hydrogen carbonate or bicarbonate, it changes from the blue, which is its original color where no change happens, into different colors according to the percentage of carbon dioxide in this sample. If it's a very, very small amount of carbon dioxide at trace, it's going to change into green. And with the more carbon dioxide, the color will change deeper and deeper. So it's going to change to yellow next, and then golden, and then finally orange. Another thing that you need to know about your breathing system. Your breathing rate changes with exercise. Not only your breathing rate, but your breathing depth will change by exercise. Why? Because while you're exercising, this means that your body needs more energy. So when your body needs more energy, it needs to do more and more aerobic respiration. More aerobic respiration means more oxygen, so that's why it signals or it wants more oxygen. So the breathing system will increase the rate and the depth of the respiration in order to get you more and more oxygen. Let's answer some questions together. The diagram shows someone blowing up a balloon. What percentage of the gas in the balloon is carbon dioxide? It is 4%, as we agreed before. The graph shows the rate and the depth of a person's breathing before exercise. So this is how the rate and the depth of this person's breathing was before the exercise. Which graph shows the rate and the depth of breathing of the same person immediately after a period of exercise? So we said that exercise increases the rate and the depth of the person's breathing. So of course it can't be this one. Why? Because here the depth increased, yes, but the rate is the same. We have two waves, it's the same. Here we have a huge increase in the rate, but the depth is the same, no change. Here we have more rate, but less depth. So this one is the correct one. Why? Because it contains more rate and more depth. The diagram shows some ciliated cells from the surface of the trachea. What is the function of the parts labeled X? Labeled X, these are the cilia. What do? They move mucus outside after it got all of the foreign bodies and unwanted particles to remove them outside of our breathing system. The diagram shows a section in the alveolus and a capillary. So this is the blood capillary here, and this is the alveolus. Why does the carbon dioxide move from X to Y? Because it moves by diffusion. Remember, all gases move by diffusion. Now we have less carbon dioxide in the alveolus and more carbon dioxide in the blood. So the carbon dioxide will move because of the concentration gradient. So air has lower concentration of carbon dioxide than the blood. Now paper 3 questions. The air which is inhaled is different from that which is exhaled. Complete the following sentences about these differences. Inhaled air has more than exhaled air. What do you think? Oxygen. Of course, this is the most famous answer. You can say dust and particles. Why? Because they will be trapped by the mucus and pushed out by the cilia, and the air will be filtered anyway, so the exiting air will not contain those dust particles or any particles anymore. Exhaled air has more what? You can say carbon dioxide, you can say water vapor than inhaled air. Inhaled air usually has a lower temperature than exhaled air. That's because the capillaries that line all of our breathing system and specifically our alveoli will warm this air. So the air will leave outside warmer. Also, you have to know that your nasopharynx area is adapted to warm your air before it reaches your alveoli in order to make it warmer while it's inside your body. One of the gases present in the inhaled and exhaled air is carbon dioxide. Describe how you could test exhaled air for carbon dioxide and describe the result if carbon dioxide is present. You can mention any of the two tests that we mentioned, lime water or hydrogen bicarbonate. Both are okay. If it's lime water, so it will turn into milky white. If it's hydrogen bicarbonate, it will change to yellow, golden, or orange. All of them are correct. Gas enters and leaves the blood by diffusion. Define diffusion. Of course, it is the movement of particles down the concentration gradient or with the concentration gradient. And this is the mark scheme to show you that if you say the random movement of gases, not just particles, it will be accepted, but make sure you don't write along or across concentration gradient. You have to mention it in the right scientific terms, down or with. Thank you, and I hope this video helps you study.